it for when. So you are in charge of this passage, right? Okay. And who is going to analyze the text? Okay. Go ahead, Karen.
I'm going to talk about this as a part summary. And after Victor released from prison, and he and his father return home, and Victor finds Elizabeth become thinner and change, and he mentioned that only Elizabeth can comfort his complicated emotions. Yes, and this is summary. And we find 4 main points in this excerpt. First, about Victor. We find Victor's he still shows his coward personality in this excerpt, because in the excerpt he still I think he doesn't have courage and having courage.
Could you give me an example of
Yes.
where he is
Okay.
a coward?
Coward.
You can also look at the passage here. Okay, you have your own PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me get my novel. Because I don't have my PowerPoint now. Yeah, go ahead.
On page 190, although Elizabeth tries to comfort him, but he said, sometimes I was furious and burned with rage, sometimes low and despondent. I neither spoke nor looked at anyone, but sat motionless, bewildered by the multitude of miseries that overcame me. I think every time the Creator tries to harm his family, he can do is to be furious and think that all is the Creator's fault. Yes, and in some relevant pages, I think we can also find he always try to find many excuses to hide his faults, like on page 189. I have one secret. Elizabeth, a dreadful. 等一下。sorry. Page 80. When Justin was when Justin was accused of murder, killing, 他叫 William 还是
Williams.
Yes, Williams. He said, my tale was not one to announce publicly, and its astounding horror would be looked upon as madness by the vulgar. Did anyone indeed exist except I, the Creator, who would believe unless his senses convinced him in the existence of the living? Moments of presumption and rash ignorance, which I had let loose upon the world. He think no one would believe him, so he didn't speak. He didn't reveal anyone that he did the Creator, did the horrible Creator. Yes, and this is about Victor's excuse. And In this excerpt, he said only Elizabeth can comfort him, but we raised some questions. I think Victor he didn't he said Elizabeth can comfort him, but it is some kind of contradictory. Yeah, because if Elizabeth he loves Elizabeth, but why did he not want to tell the secrets to Elizabeth? Although he want to tell her, but on page 189, he said, "I have one secret, Elizabeth, a dreadful one," but he chose to tell her after their marriage. So this we will talk about later. Yes.
Karen?
We also found this excerpt passage significance because it is a transition to another big turning point in this novel, that is Elizabeth's death. However, to Victor, he didn't realize what the monster's meaning that "I shall be with you on your wedding night." He mistakes this as his own death, his fate. So he shows his own personality in a awkward silent mode, that uneasy and anxious, and that Elizabeth is there for him to comfort him. And in this excerpt, that in the last paragraph, "She wept with me and for me," and we can see that Elizabeth is really a considerate and caring woman for Victor. And we found some passage that can be evidence to support that Elizabeth as a comfort for Victor, like page 63 in chapter 6. This is where, when Victor buried himself in studying the creation, that she said in her letter, "You have been ill, very ill, and even the constant letters of dear kind Henry are not sufficient to reassure me on your health." And even Victor is far away from her, she also cared about her and tried to contact from Henry to know what Victor's condition is now. And the next one is about page 153 to 54. This is when Victor is going to England again to create another creature for the monster. And she, from Victor's viewpoint, that he thinks that Elizabeth is always there for him, and we can see that the line said, "It had been her care which provided me a companion in Clerval." So we see strong relationship in both of them, and also this proves Elizabeth's comfort and support. And the next one is on page 189. When Victor received Elizabeth's letter, he said that, "Sweet and beloved Elizabeth, I read and reread her letter, and softened feelings stole into my heart, and dare to whisper paradisical dreams of love and joy." And this is another point we can see how Victor loves Elizabeth, and how Elizabeth becomes the support of him. And another thing we can see in Elizabeth is her role as women in this novel. We can see from the interaction between she and Victor and the Frankenstein family, and also the sacrifice image when we compare to Justin, the trial, and in our relevance to us, that part, we think that as for Elizabeth, she is passive outward, but she is really active inward. And we can think about what would it be like for modern women in this situation.
I mean, active inward.
Because she is always caring and worry about Victor. That's why she become thinner than before. But she, as a woman, she cannot be too active to approach the man.
So, any responses, or do you want to go on discussing the same main issues? Okay, so who is taking care of the same?
I think what Karen just talked about, active inward, I think we can elaborate on that by putting the women's position during that time into consideration. Because Mary Shelley's mom, Mary Wollstonecraft, was a radical thinker and early feminist. So Tina and I think it will be very interesting if we discuss how Mary Shelley present all the women's role in this novel. So as for the mention part, we are mainly we are going to talk about the role and the presentation of women. So I think I'll first talk about the characteristic of women in the 19th century. First of all, women, because 19th century is still a patriarchal society, so women still depend on men. Therefore, they have nothing but men in their life, so their duty is restricted to maternal and sexual responsibility. So in that sense, women's becomes really have a passive nature, which means, just like what Karen said, they have their own opinions in their minds, but they cannot voice out their concerns. So they have this kind of passive nature. And to me, men in that time, they try to seek for the love and companionship from women. I think men think if they have the love and companionship of women, of a beautiful woman, their life will be completed. I think they don't really care about what women think in their minds. And I think we can move on to, in this novel, there are lots of women, and I try to organize them into two clusters. I named them the two clusters of women. First is the three women that have the influence on Victor are her mother, Elizabeth, and Justine. And as for the creature, it's the Agatha and Sophie and Eve. And I will first talk about Elizabeth, and the rest of, and Tina and I will talk about the rest of them later. Elizabeth was, I think, Frankenstein, like on page 35, the last paragraph. My mom has said playfully, "I have a pretty present for my Victor." And the next page, Victor says, and her words literally, and look upon Elizabeth as mine. I think in this passage we can see that it is very clear that Elizabeth is presented as a possession here. So I think it kind of fit into what I just talked about, the women's role in 19th century. They are not very respected. And I read a very interesting reference that says how parents can have a huge influence on their child during their childhood. In that research, it says that because Elizabeth Caroline, Victor's mother, and her father gave Elizabeth to Victor when he was a child, and he told them, I have a pretty present for Victor. So in that sense, it kind of instilled this kind of concept into Frankenstein's mind that, oh, women are my possessions. And it kind of formed his mind to be a very self-centered, never stand in other shoes. And I think what I want to elaborate on what Karen and Kara said. I think they have mentioned that Elizabeth is always the support and comfort of Victor Frankenstein. And I think men in that time, because they think they have to seek comfort and love from women, so I think they value the virtue of women very much. To Victor, I think to Victor, Elizabeth is like a goddess, like like I found a passage, and I haven't checked on what page yet. It just said she is a being heaven sent and bearing a celestial stamp. In that sense, we can see that Elizabeth is like a goddess imagery, like a divine imagery to Victor Frankenstein. And Victor Frankenstein even described her as fairer than picture cherub, which means she is more beautiful than the angels. And in this novel, in this passage, we can see that, as I have mentioned before, women seek for companionship and love from women. Men seek for companionship and love from women. In the excerpt we've been assigned in the first paragraph, we can see that, but her gentleness and soft looks of compassion made her a more fit companion for one blessed and miserable as I was. I think this just supports what I just had said, that women are just simply their companion, and men didn't really care that much about women in that time. So in our group, later in our group, because in this novel, our knowledge of the female characters were all from the perception of Victor Frankenstein himself. So we think it is not very authentic. Maybe those women have something to say. So later we will have Tiffany and Wayne they will do a creative revision to respond to this excerpt. So I'll hand the mic to Tina.
Okay, like Emil said, this novel is littered with passive women who suffer calmly and then expire. And the females are securely fixed within the domestic realm, performing their duties as housewives, daughters, sisters, and servants. And like Carolyn, she's a self-sacrificing mother who dies taking care of her daughter, and she's also a perfect daughter, a sacrificing mother who dies taking care of her adopted daughter, Elizabeth, and she's also a perfect daughter who nursing her father until his death, and and being a perfect wife and mother. Okay, and the last is the second is Elizabeth. Is the like Emil said, is the ideal sister, cousin, and future wife. And the Justin is the faithful and loving servant. And 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 the women's roles in the novel. Okay, and I think Emil mentioned that this the women's are described from Frankenstein's point of view, and I think this accentuates the pity of women's woes, and like the women in the novel are all self-sacrifice and angelic, like, and compassion and loving, and they are selfless. They devoted to the men. And here in the first, I want to talk about the mother, the Callan.
We skip the passages. You've used 20 minutes already.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
maybe you can move on to the next point.
And okay. And here's Justin. He's also I want to mention that he's very. Is this a Justin? Sorry. He's
lovable.
He's very lovable and passive, extreme passive. Is this a Justin the passage? I didn't. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Submissive and religious.
Yeah. And here in the next slide. Okay, other female roles. Okay, here are the roles that Amel said that the former cluster for the monster, and here I list some characteristics of. And here, and there's another point I didn't mention in the slide is the female monster. We want to put emphasis on it because we think Victor's fancied destruction of a part-finished body is because maybe there's a possibility that the female monster represent the dark side of female sexuality. Yeah, because Frankenstein might have fears that she might be uncontrollable after she's done, or she might break the rules, or not be bound by the contract she before she existed. So therefore he destructed her. Yeah, and our conclusion for this part is the female.
How about the role of Agatha? Why do you think that she shaped the monster's beliefs?
Because she, the way she performed, her interaction with the family, yeah, and the monster learned how to interact with people and build his belief toward people. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And here's a short conclusion for this part. The female character in the play are essential to understand Frankenstein's nature, and therefore thus ultimately to arouse the reader's empathy for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one.
Okay. Since we're running out of time, I'll make it faster. When
they ran out of time. You still have time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I in charge of the part of symbolic extension and creative revision, and in this passage we can see that Elizabeth comforts Frankenstein whenever he was encountered with any difficulties. Therefore, we think that Elizabeth's her love toward Frankenstein is just like a sunshine. We found the evidence on page 38. On the 38, it's on the 7th line. He said that Elizabeth shone like a shrine dedicated lamp in our peaceful home. Her sympathy was ours, her smile, her soft voice, the sweet glance of her celestial eyes were ever there to bless and animate us. She was the living spirit of love to soften and attract. I might have become sullen in my study. Yes. Okay. So for Frankenstein, Elizabeth's love is like a sun, which never stops sending warmth and caring to him. So even though Elizabeth knows that Frankenstein is hiding something from her, she still gives him what she has in any condition. Yeah. And next, I'll talk about my creative revision. Because in this passage is written only in Frankenstein's point of view, so some statement will not be that objective. Therefore, okay, the following are point of view from Elizabeth. After I wrote to my dear Frankenstein, he finally returned. However, as time passed, I'm getting older and older. It seems that he hides some secrets in his mind, something that he will never let me know. Is it because I'm getting old and I'm not beautiful anymore, so that he wants to get rid of me? These thoughts are just my wild guess. I'm not sure whether it's right or not, so I don't want to tell him about this. I still welcome him with my warm and true heart still, because being his wife, I have to support whatever he does. I don't think I have the space to persuade him from doing anything he wants to. Okay, and we'll talk about the next part.